get here, like patristic pillars, has to do with Canon 28, the Council of Chalcedon. Now, you may think that this is not a compelling argument, but believe it or not, we get this asked a lot. How do you deal with Canon 28 and the claims of papal primacy or papal supremacy? And believe it or not, Canon 28 is one of the most powerful evidences of papal supremacy. It's one of the most powerful ones. So we love dealing with Canon 28. Unfortunately, we've been so busy, we haven't had time to dive into papal apologetics, but now we are diving in and we're going very deep into papal apologetics. Indeed, we're debating multiple times in English and in Spanish on the papacy. So we're pumped. We're thrilled to dive into this with you. We know that a lot of you have asked and requested 4 videos on Canon 28. A lot of you have said, look, we recognize the arguments being put forth by Eastern Orthodoxy on this. Can you touch upon this? Can you deal with this logically? Can we touch upon it? And here we are. We're going to deal with Canon 28 of the Council of Chalcedon, which has often been a point of contention between Catholic and Orthodox theologians, as well as a point of attack for those seeking to disprove Catholic claims about papal primacy. Some argue that this canon challenges a Catholic understanding of the papacy and the hierarchical structure of the church by elevating the See of Constantinople to a position of prominence, seemingly in competition with the See of Rome. Now, that's the claim. Remember, pay attention to what the actual claim is, because if you are unable, I want to put this out for you, for those that are aspiring to be apologists, or for those that are already doing apologetics, and maybe you want to get sharper in this area. And I want to let you know, we've got to understand the other side's arguments and positions before we try to refute them. We better understand them, because if we're unable to lay out what they believe, there really is no point in doing the apologetic material. We've got to know what they believe. We've got to represent them appropriately. We've got to, in order to be able to refute them. So some argue that this canon challenges the Catholic understanding of the papacy and the hierarchical structure of the church by elevating the See of Constantinople to a position of prominence, seemingly in competition with the See of Rome. However, a closer examination of Canon 28, its context, and the broader historical and theological understanding of the Council of Chalcedon reveals that not only does Canon 28 not disprove Catholicism, it's also not officially part of the council's decrees. Instead, the canon reflects a local political decision that ultimately did not receive approval. Pay attention to that point. That ultimately did not receive approval from the papacy, which remains crucial in understanding its significance. Onward we go. The Council of Chalcedon. Background. The Council of Chalcedon, held in 451 AD, was the 4th ecumenical council of the church, and it dealt primarily with the Christological debates of the time. The council condemned the Monophysite heresy, affirming that Christ has 2 natures, the divine and the human, united in one person. The council also issued 27 canons dealing with ecclesiastical discipline, the organization of the church, and matters related to clergy and the laity. Canon 28 was introduced late in the council and was intended to address the status of the See of Constantinople, also known as New Rome. By this time, Constantinople had become the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire. Its political importance had grown considerably. The bishops of Constantinople sought to have their see elevated in ecclesiastical rank to reflect this political reality. And Canon 28 was drafted to declare that the See of Constantinople should have equal privileges with Rome, particularly in matters of ecclesiastical jurisdiction in the East. So, pay attention, because political importance had grown a massive amount. The bishops of Constantinople, they wanted to have their see elevated in ecclesiastical rank in order to reflect this political reality. And Canon 28 was drafted to declare to declare this, to lay this out. And of course, it was a novelty. It really was. It really was a novelty. Let's go in further. So this very clearly is a novelty. It was a novelty, and that there's no doubt. But we tend to have our evangelical friends and our Eastern Orthodox friends, brothers and sisters, not understanding this and going wild when it comes to Canon 28, which is really, truly unfortunate because they don't understand the context of Canon 28. Now, I'm going to tell you one thing. Online, there's very little real work being done in the world of Eastern Orthodoxy. There's very little real work being done. You've got a lot of very bad apologetics material, a lot of people hearkening to old 18th century arguments to attack Catholicism, uniting with Protestantism, utilizing arguments that Protestants have made classical by attacking the Immaculate Conception, attacking purgatory and the papacy. It's become very difficult to distinguish between the online world of Eastern Orthodoxy and Protestantism. Now, the on the ground, on the boots, the real people that go to church within Eastern Orthodoxy, they're very different, very, very different. I mean, they're real scholars. It's a different world. You cannot compare the online world of Eastern Orthodoxy with the real scholarly world. They're two different worlds. I can tell you because I work side by side with many of their top scholars. They're two different worlds. They don't even resemble one another. The online Eastern Orthodox world of apologetics is a farce. It isn't to be taken seriously. None of them, pay attention, none of those guys online know a lick of the languages. They're using the online Shaft New Advent edition, or they're using the Shaft edition and the Phillips edition, Robertson edition. They're using the hardback copies of the Old English translations. I mean, that tells you everything. That tells you everything. When you're not doing real work, when you're not doing real scholarly work, you're going to be utilizing outdated translations. What do we mean by outdated? Are they still good? That's been asked a lot. Are they still good? Yeah, they're good. Without a doubt, a lot of them are free. A lot of them are for free. They can be found for free online. So yes, they're good, but there are better translations that exist now. There are much better translations that we can get a hold of from critical editions, critical texts. So the problem is you've got individuals that are doubling down, not doing any real scholarly work, and they are using and utilizing old Protestant arguments to attack the papacy and Catholicism. We've got to be aware of the arguments they're using. The text and content of Canon 28. Following in every way the decrees of the Holy Fathers and acknowledging the canon of the 150 bishops, most beloved of God, who assemble in the imperial city of Constantinople, New Rome. In the time of the great Emperor Theodosius of pious memory, we also decree and vote the same things concerning the prerogatives of the most holy church of the same Constantinople, New Rome. For the fathers rightly accorded prerogatives to the throne of the elder Rome, because it was the imperial city. And moved by the same purpose, the 150 bishops, most beloved of God, awarded equal prerogatives to the most holy throne of New Rome, rightly judging that the city which is honored with the sovereignty and the Senate and enjoys equal privileges with the elder royal Rome should also be magnified in ecclesiastical matters, as she is, being second after her. Really doesn't seem to us like the language here really helps or favors the Eastern Orthodox or even Protestant claims for that matter. Does it? Does it seem like that to you? The canon asserts that the privileges accorded to the Church of Constantinople are based on the city's political and imperial status, not on apostolic foundations, as is the case with Rome. It essentially seeks to elevate the status of Constantinople to a level equal to Rome in the Eastern Church, granting it significant authority over ecclesiastical matters in certain regions. So to go over very clearly, the canon asserts that the privileges accorded to the Church of Constantinople are based on what? On the city's political and imperial status, not on apostolic foundations, as is the case with Rome. It essentially seeks to elevate the status of Constantinople to a level equal to Rome in the Eastern Church, granting it significant authority over ecclesiastical matters in certain regions. Historical and theological context. To understand Canon 28 properly, it is crucial to place it within its historical context. By the mid-5th century, the political landscape of the Roman Empire had shifted significantly. The imperial capital had moved to Constantinople, and the Bishop of Constantinople naturally sought to increase his ecclesiastical authority to reflect the city's newfound political significance. However, the claim to equality with Rome was not based on theological or apostolic grounds, but purely on the city's political status. Rome, on the other hand, had always maintained its primacy based on its apostolic foundation, specifically on the role of St. Peter, whom Christ appointed as the leader of the apostles, as in the Gospel of St. Matthew 16, 18, and 19. The Catholic Church has always understood the primacy and supremacy. Remember, primacy and supremacy, they are interchangeable. And we're going to show you how that is the case. For some people that try and claim that that is not true, we're going to lay it out how that really is definitively true. The Catholic Church has always understood the primacy of the See of Rome to be rooted in its apostolic foundation, particularly the role of St. Peter and his successors as the bishops of Rome. The primacy of Rome is not contingent on the city's political status, but rather on its theological significance and the unique role that Christ gave to Peter. This is affirmed in early church writings over and over, by the way, over and over and over, such as those of St. Irenaeus, who refer to Rome as the church with preeminent authority, and the Council of Nicaea 325, which recognized the special status of Rome due to its apostolic foundation. In contrast, this is important, in contrast, Constantinople's claim to ecclesiastical primacy was based on its status as the imperial capital. This is a key distinction because it demonstrates that the elevation of Constantinople was not based on the theological or apostolic reasons that formed the foundation of Rome's primacy. There's a massive difference there, a humongous difference there. Now, as we've done in our video on the universal bishop, and it's worthy of doing every time we look at a papacy video, of looking at briefly the primacy and the supremacy of Holy St. Peter in the Gospels, in the Bible. Because ultimately, you can try and sit and argue morning and night. Well, I thought this father meant that. I thought this father meant that. But at the end of the day, Holy Writ, which is in the inerrant, inspired word of God, teaches papal supremacy, and the councils, which are protected from error under the guidance of the Holy Spirit, teach papal supremacy as well. And I have no idea what our Eastern Orthodox friends are going to do about that, because they're in a major bind with those issues being the truth. The most explicit scriptural evidence for the primacy of St. Peter, and by extension the papacy, is found in the Gospel of St. Matthew. Now, of course, we will say that in the others as well, but this really is a classical one that we point to, that the ecumenical councils did as well, and the fathers as well. Not that they didn't also hearken to John 21 and Luke, but this is a great one because of the utilization of the name Peter, the changing of the name. So important. And I tell you, you're Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. So heaven will recognize that binding. That's massive. Heaven will recognize that binding. That is the special role of the papacy. That is such a massively important point that we've got to hammer home, that we've got to emphasize. In this passage, Jesus singles out Peter, Greek Petros, meaning rock, and establishes him as the foundation of his church. The keys of the kingdom of heaven symbolize authority, a direct reference to Isaiah 22, where the key to the house of David is a symbol of stewardship over God's people. That's massive. In granting Peter the keys, Jesus is giving him a unique authority over the church, a massively unique authority over the church. St. Peter as the shepherd of the church. In John chapter 21, the Gospel of St. John, after the resurrection, Jesus appears to the disciples and speaks directly to Peter. And these words echo in the mouths and sermons and preachings of the greatest church fathers of all time, all throughout history. We cannot forget about that. How councils use this, how church fathers use this, how the papacy has always utilized these classical texts for itself, for this divinely instituted office. So we continue by diving in. St. Peter's primacy in the Gospels. And when we notice that some of the most explicit scriptural evidence for the primacy of St. Peter can be found in the Gospel of St. Matthew, you can bet your bottom dollar it's worth reading. We read, "And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven." We go onward. In this passage, Jesus singles out Peter, Greek Petros, meaning rock, and establishes him as the foundation of his church. The keys of the kingdom of heaven symbolize authority, a direct reference to Isaiah 22, where the key to the house of David is a symbol of stewardship over God's people. In granting Peter the keys, Jesus is giving him a unique authority over the church. Peter is the shepherd of the church. The Gospel of St. John, chapter 21, after the resurrection, Jesus appears to the disciples and speaks directly to Peter. Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." He said to him, "Feed my lambs." He said to him a second time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." He said to him, "Tend my sheep." That's where we look at the Greek and we notice that it's referring to a shepherding role that he's got, a shepherding over the flock. He is to shepherd over the flock. That's massively important to point out. Massively important. Said to him the third time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" He said to him the third time. Peter was grieved because he said to him the third time, "Do you love me?" And he said to him, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my sheep. Feed my sheep." Massively powerful words. Feed my sheep. The Gospel of St. John, chapter 21, verses 15 to 17. Here, Jesus explicitly commands Peter to shepherd his flock, a role of spiritual leadership that extends beyond the apostles and the early church. The charge to feed and tend Christ's sheep is a commission that mirrors the role of a shepherd, with Peter taking on the role of the chief shepherd after Christ. This is a clear sign of Peter's unique pastoral authority, which includes not just the apostles, but the entire church. That's key. It includes the entire church. We have got to emphasize this point. Without emphasizing it, we overlook the most important aspects of the text. Peter's leadership in the early church. St. Peter's leadership is also evident in the Acts of the Apostles, where he takes the central role in guiding the early church. In Acts 1, 15 to 26, Peter leads the apostles in choosing a replacement for Judas. In Acts 2, St. Peter delivers the first public proclamation of the gospel at Pentecost. And in Acts 10, he is the first to bring the gospel to the Gentiles. Most significantly, Acts 1:20 identifies the apostles as bishops. For it is written in the book of Psalms, may his camp become desolate, and let there be no one to dwell in it, and let another take his office. The Greek word used for office here is episcope, which directly refers to the office of a bishop. This shows that the apostles were considered the first bishops of the church, with Peter clearly serving as their leader. We need to understand these theological teachings. Once we do, then we're able to fully grasp and understand papal supremacy, papal primacy, supremacy. They go hand in hand. Indeed, they are interchangeable. Indeed, they are interchangeable. And of that, there is no doubt that they're interchangeable. So it's important to remember this. These are massively important points. Massively important. For it is written in the book of Psalms, may his camp become desolate, and let there be none to dwell in it. No one, and let another take his office. The Greek word used for office here is episcope. It is episcope. Pay attention. It directly refers to the office of bishop. Directly, he's a bishop. He's a bishop of Rome, the head shepherd of the church. The keys and universal shepherding. The combination of these passages demonstrates the following. St. Peter was given a unique authority directly by Christ in the form of the keys of the kingdom. The Gospel of St. Matthew 16:19. Representing his role in governing the church, he was charged to shepherd Christ's flock, making him the chief shepherd after Christ, as the Gospel of St. John chapter 21 clearly lays out. He acted as the leader of the apostles and the early church, taking decisive roles in doctrinal, disciplinary, and missionary matters. From these scriptural foundations, the church understood Peter's successors, the bishops of Rome, to inherit his authority as the chief shepherds of the universal church. The early church knew this as well. The early church clearly knew this, viewed it this way, and interpreted the passages in this manner. That is why we can point to the early fathers and the early councils, which clearly show papal supremacy. Of that, there is no doubt. There is no doubt. The bishops of Rome inherit his authority as the chief shepherds of the universal church. Of that, there is no doubt. There cannot be any doubt of that. So what is the papal response to Canon 28? If you thought we were done, we're just beginning. We're barely beginning to have fun. So if you thought we were done, we're barely diving in. The papal response to Chalcedon, the so-called Chalcedonian 28th canon. One of the most critical points in understanding Canon 28 is that it was never accepted by the Pope, who held the authority to approve or reject the canons of an ecumenical council. Pope St. Leo the Great, who was Pope at the time of the Council of Chalcedon, vehemently rejected Canon 28. In a series of letters, particularly in this famous Epistle 105, and I know sometimes they're numbered differently. I know this. Pope St. Leo the Great made it clear, the Lion made it clear, that he did not recognize the legitimacy of the canon. He stated that the Council of Chalcedon had no authority to elevate Constantinople to a status equal to that of Rome, because the primacy of Rome was based on its apostolic foundations, not on political considerations. Very important, not on political considerations. Pope St. Leo the Great's rejection of Canon 28 was decisive. While the rest of the Council of Chalcedon's decisions, particularly those regarding Christology, were accepted and affirmed by the Pope, Canon 28 was excluded from papal approval. Therefore, Canon 28 never became part of the official decrees of the Council of Chalcedon. In the Catholic understanding, a canon of an ecumenical council must be ratified by the Pope to have binding authority over the whole church. And since Pope St. Leo the Great refused to ratify Canon 28, it never achieved the status of an authoritative decision for the universal church. That's very clear. Very clear. Papal primacy and supremacy is based on apostolicity, not on politics. That is a clear message of Pope St. Leo the Great. The primacy of Rome has always been understood within the Catholic Church from the beginning and biblically as a theological and apostolic reality, not as a political one. Rome's authority comes from its connection to St. Peter, whom Christ appointed as the leader of the apostles and the rock in which the church would be built. And the elevation of Constantinople was based on political factors, the city's status as the imperial capital, rather than on theological or apostolic grounds. Therefore, Canon 28 does not challenge the Catholic understanding of papal supremacy because the reason for Rome's primacy remained intact, and it was rejected. If anything, it proves papal supremacy. If anything, it proves papal supremacy, because Canon 28 was not accepted by the Lion, the great pillar, the master of Christology, Pope Leo the Lion. Pope St. Leo the Great, as mentioned earlier, Canon 28 was explicitly rejected by the master. And in Catholic tradition, the decisions of ecumenical councils must be ratified by the Pope to be binding on the whole church. Since Canon 28 did not receive papal approval, it never became an authoritative part of the council's decrees. This demonstrates that the Pope retained ultimate authority over the decisions of the council, reinforcing the Catholic understanding of papal supremacy. Yet again, we're right there at the door of papal primacy. We're right there. But what is even more damaging for our Eastern Orthodox brothers and sisters, problematic for them indeed, is that from the very beginning, the Eastern Fathers and the Eastern saints and patriarchal figures at council after council after council, they agreed to the papal claims. They agreed to the papal claims. Even in the East, there was recognition of the special status of Rome. Many Eastern bishops, including those at the Council of Chalcedon, acknowledged the unique role of the Pope and his primacy in matters of faith. For instance, the Council of Chalcedon itself explicitly praised Pope Leo for his role in resolving the Christological debates. How do they refer to him? Refer to him as Peter speaking through Leo. That's massive. This recognition of papal primacy, supremacy in theological matters shows that even though Canon 28 sought to elevate Constantinople, it did not displace the unique role of Rome in the church. It couldn't do that. It never would have been able to do that. You should get tired of hearing Canon 28 brought up over and over and over, but know that your Eastern Orthodox interlocutors cannot even defend themselves against papal supremacy if you learn what the claims are. Learn these texts, learn the claims, and you will devastate the arguments of the modern day EO online, who do not resemble the on the boots, on the ground Eastern Orthodox, the actual scholars, those going to church, those actually telling you to worship God. They don't resemble them. Their theology sucks. And I'm blunt. I don't hold back. I'm telling you, but I'm not telling you that all of my Eastern Orthodox brothers and sisters are bad. I'm telling you that those that do online e-apologetics are awful. They're atrocious. They spend the majority of their time making atrocities of the faith, getting Chalcedon wrong, getting all the councils wrong. They do a mess of theology. They're not doing theology. and they tell you to ignore the clergy, to ignore their own leaders, are you going to listen to that? Listen to your own saints. And if you do that, you're going to come knocking on the door back home to Catholicism, because that's where your saints were at in council after council. When they agreed to the papal claims, they were there at home. Where are you today? Don't tell me, oh, the papacy has changed so much and the papal claims, oh, we never agreed to the papal claims. Really? Really? Pope St. Agatha disagrees. Council after council, they don't agree. The biggest refutation of Eastern Orthodoxy are the actual church fathers and councils. Of course, I recommend pointing to the Bible, because the Bible also teaches papal supremacy, but just quote the fathers and the councils. You know what their response is? Oh, honorifics. They didn't mean what they were saying. Ultimately, you're going to say, I'm sick of this stupidity. I'm sick of these bad arguments. And you're going to realize they're bad and they're low level. And you're going to want meatier theological information. And when you want that meatier theological information, you're going to abandon theological novelties. And you're going to come home. I know that. I'm telling you that right now. Papal supremacy. Session 2 of the Acts of the Council records, after the reading of the foregoing epistle, the most reverend bishops cried out, this is the faith of the fathers. This is the faith of the apostles. So we all believe. Thus the Orthodox believe. Anathema to him who does not believe. Thus believe. Peter has spoken thus through Leo. So taught the apostles. Piously and truly did Leo teach. So taught Cyril. Everlasting be the memory of Cyril. Leo and Cyril taught the same thing. Anathema to him who does not so believe. This is the true faith. This is the true faith. My goodness, I get baffled today at the modern day online EO arguments that don't resemble any of their scholars, by the way. Because when you read the actual councils, you got something so different. Peter has spoken thus to Leo. Where is your Peter today? And don't tell me, well, every bishop is a Peter. Don't give me that. Well, every bishop is a Peter. Really? Was every bishop a Peter in the Bible? Was every bishop a Peter in the Gospels, where Peter is distinguished as the head shepherd? Was every bishop given that role? Was every bishop told to strengthen, say, Rizon, the brethren, which was interpreted to show papal supremacy and infallibility in an ecumenical council? Don't tell me, well, every bishop is a Peter. Yes, all the bishops working in unison with the head, hold the keys. But if you are in schism, you are not within the fullness of the faith. You don't exercise those keys. So don't tell me, yes, well, the mere Byzantine honorifics. Oh, forgeries. What are you going to do at the end of the day when the people that follow your work grow sick and tired of this child's game? We're trying to do real theology here and come to the table and discuss real theological matters, and people are playing tic-tac-toe. When it came time to excommunicate Dioscorus, the papal legates said the following in session 3. Wherefore, the most holy and blessed Leo, Archbishop of the great and elder Rome, through us and through this present most holy synod, together with the thrice blessed and all glorious Peter the Apostle, who is the rock and foundation of the Catholic Church and the foundation of the Orthodox faith, hath stripped him of the episcopate and hath alienated from him all hieratic worthiness. Therefore, let this most holy and great synod sentence the before mentioned Dioscorus to the canonical penalties. By the way, this language here is indicative of papal supremacy. Even our Oriental Orthodox brothers and sisters are going to admit that. They're going to admit that. He viewed himself as having a particular kind of power. That's massively powerful. After the council asked the Pope to approve Canon 28, which would give Constantinople unprecedented standing, Epistle 98 records the letter addressed to the Pope. It's a great letter. It's great. You're going to love this. You're going to truly enjoy, and you're going to truly love this. I'm enjoying this. Y'all enjoying it so far? If you're enjoying it, please do me a huge favor. Smash the like button. Let me know in the chat. Leave us a few comments down below. If you're enjoying the video. Are you liking that we're doing more and more papal apologetics? You enjoying that? We got a lot more to come. We got a ton more to come, including a lot of debates. And we further inform you that we've decided in other things, also for the good management and stability of church matters, being persuaded that your holiness will accept and ratify them when you are told. The long prevailing custom which the Holy Church of God at Constantinople had of ordaining metropolitans for the provinces of Asia, Pontus, and Thrace, we have now ratified Canon 28 by the votes of the Synod, not so much by way of conferring a privilege on the See of Constantinople as to provide for the good government of those cities. We have ratified also Canon 3 of the 150 Holy Fathers who met at Constantinople. For we are persuaded that with your usual care for others, you have often extended that apostolic prestige which belongs to you to the church in Constantinople also. Accordingly, vouchsafe, most holy and blessed Father, to accept as your own wish and as conducing to good government the things which we have resolved on for the removal of all confusion and the confirmation of church order. For your holiness delegates, the most pious bishops, Pescacinus and Lucentius, and with them the right godly presbyter Boniface, attempted vehemently to resist these decisions. Pay attention. Pay attention. For we duly regarding our most devout and Christ-loving emperors who delight therein, and the illustrious Senate, and so to say, the whole imperial city, considered it opportune to use the meeting of this ecumenical synod for the ratification of your honor, and confidently corroborated this decision as if it were initiated by you with your customary fostering zeal, knowing that every success of the children rebounds to the parents' glory. Let's pay attention. Accordingly, we entreat you, honor our decision by your assent. Come on, Pope, honor it, they're asking. And as we have yielded to the head, look at how they're talking to the masterful one, to the great Pope, to the great Pope. Pay attention. Accordingly, we entreat you, honor our decision by your assent. And as we have yielded to the head our agreement on things honorable, so may the head also fulfill for the children what is fitting. What is fitting. It does fascinate us. Accordingly, we entreat you, honor our decision by your assent. And as we have yielded to the head our agreement on things honorable, so may the head also fulfill for the children what is fitting, but that you may know that we have done nothing for favor or in hatred, but as being guided by the divine will, we have made known to you the whole scope of our proceedings to strengthen our position and to ratify and establish what we have done. What we have done. Very interesting, isn't it? Very interesting. So note, this is powerful and shows that the fathers at Chalcedon clearly did not see the Pope as merely one bishop among many, or even a subordinate to the council itself. This is virtually begging Pope St. Leo to ratify the canon, where Leo responds in various letters. And letter 104 will be highlighted here. And it's extremely, extremely relevant. Letter 104. Pay attention, because all of this is so important. Let the city, and this is Pope St. Leo the Great, let the city of Constantinople have, as we desire, its high rank, and under the protection of God's right hand, long enjoy your clemency's rule. Yet things secular stand on a different basis from things divine, and there can be no sure building save on that rock which the Lord has laid for a foundation. He that covets what is not his due loses what is his own. Let it be enough for Anatolius that by the aid of your piety and by my favor and approval, he has obtained the bishopric of so great a city. Let him not disdain a city which is royal, though he cannot make it an apostolic see. And let him on no account hope that he can rise by doing injury to others. For the privileges of the church is determined by the canons of the Holy Fathers and fixed by the decrees of the Nicene Synod, cannot be overthrown by any unscrupulous act, nor disturbed by any innovation. And if that isn't enough for you, from Pope St. Leo the Great, Pope St. Gelasius, about 490 AD, a saint in Eastern Orthodoxy. On Canon 28, in his bond on the anathema, he does comment, saying they, in reference to the Easterners, they may say, as usual, that if the Council of Chalcedon is allowed to stand, they will have to accept everything, which apparently was done there. It must everything, or if some part can be rejected, then no part of it can stand. These people should know that only that part must be accepted by the whole church, which is in accordance with the Holy Scriptures, the tradition, in accordance with the canons and regulations of the church. Only that part which promotes the Catholic and Apostolic faith, communion, and truth, for the accomplishment of which the Apostolic See has ordered this done and has confirmed it after it had been accomplished. But other things, in particular, Canon 28 is what he's referring to, those which were done or simply talked about, through foolish presumption, things which the Apostolic See in no way ordered, which were clearly and speedily rejected by the legates of the Apostolic See, which the Apostolic See, even with the Emperor Marcion asking for them, in no way approved, which the Bishop of Constantinople at the time, Anatolius, claimed not to have sought and did not deny was in the power of the Bishop of the Apostolic See. In sum, as we said, that which the Apostolic See has not accepted, because it was shown to be contradictory to the privileges of the universal church, can in no way be accepted. We're going to look at that last part again. That which the Apostolic See has not accepted, because it was shown to be contradictory to the privileges of the universal church, can in no way be accepted. Canon 28 was never accepted. So when your Eastern Orthodox brothers and sisters, your friends, try to use Canon 28 to beat you over the head, you have a very clear response to them. Many people simply don't know how to answer them, so they don't. They avoid it. But this is a very clear-cut manner in which you can refute these terrible arguments. And if you don't think that the Eastern Orthodox are still utilizing these bad arguments, I can tell you right now, they're utilizing them and they're publishing them in books and using them in debate. They're really bad arguments. They don't hold up. They simply don't hold up to scrutiny. And that truly is a problem. The rejection of this canon by the Pope reaffirms the Catholic teaching that the Pope has the final authority in matters of ecclesiastical governance and doctrine. Therefore, far from disproving Catholicism, the history of Canon 28 actually reinforces the Catholic understanding of the papacy and the primacy of Rome in the universal church. So rather than disproving Catholicism, the history reinforces our belief in the supremacy of the papacy. This is amazing, isn't it? Rather than disproving the papacy, what they're trying to do, what they're aiming at doing, it proves what they're trying to disprove. Truly incredible. Truly, truly incredible. Now, I think it's worth showing a clip of a show that we did. It's a show that was filmed a while back, and we're going to show a clip of it here with a few mega historians and scholars on the issue of Canon 28. We're going to play a clip. We're going to put this portion of the clip here for you to check out, a dialogue with an Oriental Orthodox historian, as well as a massive mega Catholic scholar and the master himself, the great Dr. Goff. And we're going to lay out exactly what is so vitally important to recognize at Chalcedon. Chalcedon is very important, and it, without a doubt, proves papal supremacy.
No. You know, another point is that, you know, you bring in the rehabilitation basically on the authority of Leo at the council. But during the course of the council, not only was Theodoret rehabilitated, the tables were completely turned against Dioscoros.
Yep.
And he ended up leaving the council. And this seems to be of a process with respect going back to, again, the judgment about Ephesus 449, the deposition of Flavian, and the ratification of Eutychus. And so there's a clear process, because Eutychus and Dioscorus were in the same kind of patrimony, and Theodoret is being condemned at 449, yet being rehabilitated, giving his status at Chalcedon 451, while at the same time, during the course of that same council, the tables are completely reversed with Dioscorus, and he ends up being essentially condemned and leaving the council without really undergoing a full trial. Mm-hmm. You know, basically the tables were turned, he was abandoned by some, and he ended up just leaving, if I'm remembering correctly. So, you know, they're clearly related, again, to this judgment of Ephesus 449, and then the place and role of the papacy or his legates at Chalcedon 451.
And I want to add too, so if we just fast forward a little bit, people like to think of Constantinople 553 as the first synod where the Pope was present, right? But actually it was 536 Constantinople, and that was viewed actually as the first fifth ecumenical council until it wasn't. And I think it's one of those Lateran type of councils where you can't really reject it if you're a Chalcedonian, but it's not on the official list of whatever. So at this council, William, Doctor, I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with it, but it was a reconciliation attempt by Justinian to reconcile the two sides.
And this was Severus involved at this point?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Severus was there. Anthimus of Constantinople, he was a non-Chalcedonian, and Anthimus was going to be this reconciliation council where Justinian brings Anthimus in, and even Constantinople rejects Chalcedon and whatever. Little do they know who's in town. Pope Agapetus is there of Rome. He's in Constantinople, and they had no idea. So when the Pope is there, who's presiding over the council? The Pope is, right?
Yeah.
So he deposes Agapetus. He deposes Anthimus, and then he puts Minas of Constantinople instead. And then there's a rule now. And by the way, this is where Severus gets first condemned, and then his writings have to be burned, etc. So after Minas becomes Patriarch of Constantinople, which is what Pope Agapetus does, the rule is every time after that, the Patriarch of Constantinople has to get approval from the Pope of Rome first, because of what happened with Anthimus. This is kind of the dominoes now of Chalcedon, and then you guys being the Eastern Chalcedonians keep doing this weird stuff like the Acacian Schism and then 536 and whatever. So Rome has to kind of keep them in check after that.
Yeah, those are very, very good points. Earlier, Dr. Goff made a brilliant comment, and I want to briefly read from the Acts of the Council. After the reading of the foregoing epistle, the most reverend bishops cried out, "This is the faith of the fathers. This is the faith of the apostles. So we all believe. Does the Orthodox believe? Anathema to him who does not thus believe. Peter has spoken thus through Leo. So taught the apostles piously and truly. Did Leo teach? So taught Cyril. Everlasting be the memory of Cyril. Leo and Cyril taught the same thing. Anathema to him who does not believe, does not so believe. This is the true faith." Now, earlier, Dr. Goff, he made a great, brilliant comment that Pope Leo the Great indeed believed he had the particular power he had, that it was given to him. It was divinely instituted, and it came directly, of course, from our Lord, the office instituted by our Lord. And I think that is a point that very, very often tends to get forgotten. But Pope St. Leo the Great, look, he as a Chalcedonian, as a Catholic, we joke a lot, and Subdeacon knows this. We joke a lot that, Pope Leo just wanted his tome to be read. He wanted the letter to be read. But really, we don't hear enough of the importance of how the tome of Leo truly was the mark of orthodoxy at Chalcedon. And going forward, you've got the very beating heart of Christology there that we believe, of course, could be a discussion for another day, but we believe is directly in line with a Cyrillian Christology. So that the very fact that Pope St. Leo the Great believed he had this power and this authority, I think it needs to get brought to the table in any discussion on Chalcedon. Perhaps your thoughts on that, Dr. Goff?
Well, I think that's correct. And I would just briefly add that in distinction, both with the kind of presupposed understanding that Leo brought to this entire discussion, especially again with the emphasis on the jurisdiction or juridical powers with respect to establishing not only dogma, but in a sense, the visible communion or union of the churches. That seems clearly different. And it comes out, I think it's in Canon 28, wherein there is a certain concession made to Constantinople. Right. But the understanding of the nature of that primacy or priority or dignity of the see is something, at least in the mind of Leo, that was essentially different, and also seemingly ratified, if not ringingly explicitly, strongly implicitly, in the recognition and identification that the faith of the apostles, the faith of Peter, is being brought to bear on the situation, both retrospectively looking back to Ephesus 40:49, but also Chalcedon 4:51 with the very formulation, rehabilitation, and excommunication of figures, that the jurisdiction was something of divine institution, which is essentially different than the other more historically based and politically based rationale for the other sees. And I think, at least from a Catholic perspective, presuming that Leo basically got it right, this implies a very different understanding of the nature of episcopal, ecclesial authority and unity that uniquely resides in the person of the Pope, as distinct from all the other patriarchs and patriarchates. So I think you're right. I think even the fact that there's a concession and a recognition in Leo's mind at Chalcedon implies that there already was presupposed a difference, and that difference, in fact, was exercised in the council itself.
Yeah, I think that you are bringing up, and it is preserved in Epistle 98. Let me go ahead and put it up there on the screen. And that's a great point that you bring up in that Epistle 98, where, and I'll briefly read it and we can talk about that. In Epistle 98, you have, there's a letter that is addressed to the Pope. And it begins, well, it doesn't begin that way. I'm going to cut through a lot of what it says. But part of what it said is, for we are persuaded that with your usual care for others, you have often extended that apostolic prestige which belongs to you, to the church in Constantinople also. Accordingly, vouchsafe, most holy and blessed Father, to accept as your own wish, and as conducting to good government, the things which we have resolved on for the removal of all confusion, and the confirmation of church order. For your holiness delegates the most pious bishops, Pescasinus and Lucentius, and with them the right godly presbyter Boniface, attempted vehemently to resist these decisions. And we continue onward. This is very, very important to read this, because this is Epistle 98. It goes onward to say, for we duly regarding our most devout and Christ-loving emperors, who delight therein, and the illustrious Senate, and so to say the whole imperial city, consider it opportune to use the meeting of the children rebounds to the parents' glory. Accordingly, we entreat you, honor our decision. So they're asking him, honor our decision by your assent. And as if we have yielded to the head of our agreement on things honorable, so may the head of our proceedings to strengthen our position and to ratify and establish what we have done. So to kind of break down what is happening here, the council is asking the Pope to approve what Dr. Goff and Subdeacon have pointed out is Canon 28. Now, what does Canon 28 do? It would give Constantinople, in my opinion, what would have been unprecedented standing. And you have that preserved in Epistle 98. Now, as you know very well, to me, this is very powerful because it shows that the fathers that you have there at Chalcedon didn't look at the Pope and view the Pope merely as just one bishop among many others, or as a subordinate. Rather, they viewed him as having that power and that special role. And as we know, in a moment, we'll look at Pope St. Leo the Great's response to them. But Canon 28, in my opinion, some people think that that's a knock on the papacy. I have no clue how or why they would think that. I think rather the opposite. It surely does show that the Pope was not on equal footing with all the rest of the other bishops or subordinate. Perhaps your thoughts on that, Subdeacon, and then I'll go to you, Dr. Goff.
I don't think Leo's having any of it. I don't.
No.
It doesn't. If he can overthrow a whole council, he can't overthrow a canon.
Right.
He didn't care about the canon. But I want to also point out that Leo, as far as he was concerned, his tome, that's it. Like from 2 years earlier, his tome is the judgment. There's in his mind, there was no really need for Chalcedon. That was Marcion's idea. Leo just said the tome is universally binding. There's no question. So this is ex cathedra. This is what it is. For Leo. When the Eastern Chalcedonians say sometimes, no, it was a conciliar decision, but Leo was talking about it 2 years earlier that the whole world needs to accept it by himself, so unilaterally. I don't see that at all. There's a scholar, his name is Every. He wrote an article in Eastern Church's Review called "The Monophysite Question," and he deals with the topic of why the tome was not read at Ephesus 2, and he emphasizes that it was not condemned either. They had the setting to condemn it, as far as they were concerned, right? They were a council and the bishops were there, and they could have done that, but they didn't. And he says, besides the reason that I already gave, which is that it was a judgment of a person before the trial had occurred. Another reason was they didn't want to judge Rome. They didn't want to have the potential to be there to condemn Rome. They wanted to protect Rome from that, as far as they were concerned, again. And also we see this. There's a letter in 497. This was during the Acacian Schism. In 497, from the Synod of Alexandria, which is at the time representing the whole East. I can't remember who the emperor was at the time, if it was Zeno or Anastasius, one of them, who has Alexandria write this letter to Rome. At the time, they were in schism, right? The letter it's a very beautiful letter. It's a very loving letter. It wasn't one of animosity or enmity between the two. And they're telling them, we want to talk to you guys about the tome because maybe there was a misunderstanding. It could have been that the Greek that we received of the tome is a mistranslation of what you said in Latin. So let's talk about it and see if there's something. Unfortunately, we don't have the reply of this, but the tome was non-negotiable. Nothing was edited. Nothing was subtracted or added to it from the beginning, and all the successors of Leo continued in this mindset. It wasn't. I don't see how anybody can look at the situation and say that was a council thing, because it clearly wasn't.
Your thoughts, Dr. Goff?
Well, I think, going back to Canon 28,
Yeah.
it seems to indicate there's a certain presupposition or presumption of the unique place and role, especially, again, in terms of jurisdictional or juridical authority of the papacy, because it seems, even in the language of the canon, that there's an assumption that whatever Leo possesses of apostolicity and apostolic authority, this is something that is extended, and it's being requested or being appreciated or given thanks for. And there's also, again, a request for consent.
Yeah.
And so it seems to me strange that giving thanks or expressing gratitude for this apostolic blessings that come from Leo, that seems to presuppose there is something that is coming from Leo. And at the same time, why would one even bring this up? Now, I think a Byzantine Orthodox might say, well, this is just kind of pro forma Byzantine style. You're going to use exaggeration. But nevertheless,
I've heard that.
It is a request for the consent of the Pope. Yep. And I think, I'm skipping ahead a bit with respect to the debate over the tome, because I think it's important to bring up Leo's second letter, the second famous letter in 458.
Tends to get forgotten.
I think here he is making a linguistic change. And
we hope you were edified. We hope you loved this in-depth look at Chalcedon at times and at Canon 28. Were you edified? Were you blown away? Was the information that we gave you information you knew already, or did you learn something new? Do us a massive favor. Flood the comment section down below for the algorithm. Our channel has grown because of your massively amazing support. And without your support, we wouldn't be where we're at. Please also consider becoming a patron if our work has helped you. Remember, your patron support, or even becoming a member, your patron support and member support has allowed us to do this kind of work. Without it, we wouldn't be able to do this work. Or consider donating if you're able to. Your work helps support our ministry, and we're able to do this work because of your support. And at the end of the day, if you cannot do any of those, pray for me. Pray for our ministry, because above and beyond everything else, we need your prayers. We need your prayers. That's the greatest kind of support you can give us. Thank you so much for your help. Your help in tuning in, and your help in hitting like, and your help in commenting down below, flooding the comment section for the algorithm. God bless you. God keep you. Are you enjoying the papacy stuff we're doing? We got a lot more coming. We got a lot more coming for you. God bless you. God keep you. We'll be back before you know it. God bless you. I love you guys and gals.